Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Monday, January 21st, 2019. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We got a lot to talk about tonight. I'm going to do things a little backwards. I'm going to go over a couple of headline articles and a few articles from What's Up With That, and then I'll go over the snow totals because there's a lot to talk about with Harper. Plus, we're going to go over the current weather that we're going to be experiencing as well. Let's get right into the space weather. This is stats according to January 22nd, 2019. That's 1:14 Greenwich Mean Time. We are looking at solar wind speeds right around the 303.9 kilometers per second, with a density of around, at last check, was 11.6. Now, I also can report that the KP indices are sitting at a 2, and that has been the max as well for the last 24 hours as we look at our geomagnetic activity, our X-ray solar flux, solar proton flux. Not a lot happening out there, folks. Quiet sun, but there is an area to watch here on the sun as they are projecting possibly our next sunspot. And I'll back out. We can't really see it that well here. Of course, we're live and I lose that. That's great. Well, we were going to take a look at the SDO in motion. Let me go ahead and refresh that while we're waiting. We'll take a look at our TSI for January 13th, 2019. We came in at 1360.6465 on TSI. And let's go back to grandsolarminimum.com. There he is. All right, so we got a couple of regions we're going to be looking at. First of all, we've got the coronal hole with the possibility, not the sure positivity, but possibility of a geomagnetic storm happening on January 23rd and the 24th, coming up here within the next 24 hours. So looking at this coronal hole, we've seen bigger, we've seen wider openings. So in my opinion, this one probably will see solar wind speeds between the 550 kilometers per second, possibly some low 600 kilometers per second. So nothing too major. G1 is definitely within the reach. And here is also a spot that we are watching right now that is potentially forming. I'll zoom in on it. Forgive me, my arrow is once again broken arrow as always, but you guys can kind of see it here as it becomes a little more earth facing. It kind of begins to emerge just out of nowhere. So they are watching that area right now as a possibility for a sunspot. And then of course we got there on the eastern limb a very active region, and we've been monitoring that one for quite some time as well. We'll go ahead and take a look at what the other side of the sun is revealing to us. And let's take a look. There we have that eastern limb spot plus another very bright region, and also it looks like there is more activity on the opposite side of our sun. So we will keep an eye on this activity. We have had 14 days in a row without sunspots, so it's possible we will see that streak end, but we'll continue to monitor that sunspot. All right, let's get into some headlines. Extreme cold warnings cover almost all of Ontario and Quebec, Canada. It says here, prolonged period of very cold wind chills is forcing authorities to keep extreme cold warnings active over most of the entire Ontario and Quebec, Canada. Extreme cold warnings are issued when very cold temperatures or wind chills creates elevated risk to health, such as frostbite and hypothermia. Now, wind chill values of -40 to -45 Celsius, and that's about the same in Fahrenheit. -40 and -40 Celsius in Fahrenheit are actually the same in comparison. Are expected Monday morning, January 21st, which was today, adding the conditions in Ontario begin to slowly moderate throughout the day with wind chills near 25 to 30 below. The cold spell will last into Tuesday over northern and central Quebec. EC meteorologists urged residents to cover up as frostbite can develop within minutes on exposed skin, especially with wind chill. Risks are greater with younger children, older adults, people with chronic illness, people working or exercising outdoors, and those without proper shelter. Dress warmly, dress in layers that you can remove if you get too warm, because that's the key. We don't want you sweating, and then that cold air giving you that chill. That's just as dangerous, but lots of footage here on watchers.news. of all the snow that they had. Very cold air, and we're experiencing that here in the lower 48 tonight, going into tomorrow morning. So, not a surprise that they are getting these cold warnings right now. But and here's another thing too. Somebody in our Facebook chat brought this up. Mari, who was it that brought up the Canadian? Was it Grant that brought up the really cold Canadian temperatures?
I haven't been on Facebook. I'm sorry.
I can't recall. I apologize.
Probably Grant.
Probably was Grant.
He's
Brought
in the chat right now.
Brought it to our attention that, you know, we're talking about negative 45 degrees Celsius in Canada. This cold Arctic air has really affected these folks. And I know that's normal for them. They're used to this. But still, it's something we don't talk about because obviously you more or less look out your window and that's the weather that you're concerned about. But, you know, what they have just above us can affect us too. So I'm going to try to do a better job at covering more temperatures and forecasting as well for the Canadian area. Because here's the thing also as well, I also read today that there's a new weather modeling system coming out. It's called Graph. And what it is, it's going to be a model that now will globally forecast the weather. And the improvements are supposed to be somewhere around the 200% range. So a lot of areas we don't see up-to-date forecasting for is because they haven't had the ability to do so. And that's going to change later this year. And I'll try to dig that link up. Maybe our next broadcast I can put that up. But this made me think about global weather. But anyway, I'll leave a link in the description. And strong explosive eruption at, and forgive me if I butcher this one, Bizimaini. Ash to 32,800 feet. Aviation color is red. This happened at Kamchatka, Russia at 1610 UTC, January 20th, 2019. The aviation color was raised to red. The last major eruption of this volcano took place on December 20th in 2017. The latest activity period, which was preceded by a 1,000-year coincidence, began with the dramatic of 1955-56 eruption. Explosions sent ash up to 32,000 feet or higher, began to drift northwest. Activity of the volcano continued with strong gas steam plume and some ash of amount at the height of 3.5 and 4.5 kilometers. So they just reported that twice. Thank you. Sometimes I feel like Ron Burgundy when I'm reading some of these articles. You put it in front of me and I read it, folks. Even if it's a double paragraph, just worded differently. Anyway, more information to be found here in the link in the description. Geologically summaries on the area. Once again, thank you, watchers. You are very thorough with a lot of the information that you don't find in everyday articles. All right, so let's go talk about the Washington Post claim about the shutdown and weather forecast. And this is something I'm actually proud of people on the internet who are not, let's just say we haven't heard too much of, well, the reason why the forecast was so bad was because of the government shutdown. Thankfully, I haven't heard a lot of that. But there was a claim, of course, the Washington Post, like always, reads here, there's no evidence the government shutdown is making weather forecasts less accurate, according to experts. The Washington Post reported the shutdown has impacted the accuracy of NOAA flagships with weather model. However, NOAA and other meteorologists who fact-checked the claim found no evidence to back it up. The Washington Post reported more than 10 days ago the weather forecasts were less reliable because of ongoing government shutdown. Since then, however, evidence has mounted against that narrative. The latest rebuke of the Post narrative came from AccuWeather. The Weather and News site issued a correction to the story published Thursday on reliability of weather forecasts during the government shutdowns. Can you trust weather forecasts during shutdown? Absolutely, reports AccuWeather. And this just goes on to show the proof where there's no evidence that talks about inaccurate forecasting because of this current shutdown. And I'm confident in that statement because a lot of the things that were forecasted to happen in my neck of the woods happened. So I don't think there was any problem whatsoever. The forecast for this snowfall out here was a tricky one, but for the most part, I think people had an idea and a grip on how much was going to fall, and that came true, and maybe a little bit more. But so I don't see it. Proof is in the pudding. I think a lot of folks now the only area that would probably disagree with me was Southwest Ohio, but I told some friends that that moisture was coming from the Gulf. It's bringing warmer temperatures, so Ohio was already on that borderline freezing in the first place. So the slight shift to the north would actually disrupt the snowfall that they were once expected. They still got a decent amount of snow. I mean, it wasn't like a foot or anything, but for Southwest Ohio, 4 to 6 inches is a decent amount for that particular part of the country. But here's another tweet. I do not find evidence as of yet for the claim in my verification statistics for the NOAA global weather model. This is Ryan Mao, tweeted in early January. While problems could arise at any time, the model breaking so far, that's not happening. And these are just more claims that people are trusting the tools that they have at hand. This is an attempt from the left, Pelosi and the clowns here, as you guys see. This is their attempt into scaring people about the government shutdown. And we've heard it all. We've heard it all from, EBT benefits being taken away, when in fact President Trump issued another payment for people who receive EBT for the February payment already, just in case if the government is still shut down in February. That way they are guaranteed to get their food for next month. Now, yeah, they're going to have to budget, and it's going to be tight that month. They're getting everything early. But I think a lot of people that hopefully are using that assistance is responsible with that. And now here we hear threats of the IRS tax returns being delayed, and that's not true. They ordered them to open back up on the 28th. And now the latest claim the left is trying to scare everybody with is because of the shutdown, we can't make accurate weather forecast. And, publications like the Washington Post, they're going to eat this kind of stuff up all the time, every time. So I really appreciate this article from What's Up With That, our guest writer, Michael Bistache. I hope I didn't butcher the name here. Charles, the moderator, posted this here. The Daily Caller, good site, by the way. But thanks again. We'll leave the link in the description. And also, during this article, it briefly mentions this next article here. The Washington Post proposes a $43 ton carbon tax, rising 3% per year. This says here by columnist Robert J. Samuelson. Let's hope he just stays to writing stories here and never runs for office. We have yet to discover or create some low-cost fuel for the world that would replace fossil fuels, oil, natural gas, and coal, which provide roughly 80% of the world's energy. Most nations aren't willing to scrap the energy status quo, the very basis of modern civilization, before having a practical substitute. Under one proposal, the government would slap a $43 tax on each ton of CO2. That would equal around 38 cents on the gallon of gasoline, says an economist, Mark Hafstad of Resources for the Future, who studied the plan. It would raise about $180 billion in taxes the first year, he says. If that tax rebate were distributed to evenly, every household would receive about $1,400. So he's trying to put it in perspective. And the Washington Post wants to propose a tax. Again, this is a left-wing media. This is the same Washington Post that will post articles about Trump taking away your food stamps or Trump taking away your taxes. And also, I got another article where Trump is being harassed once again because he made a little joke, a very tiny joke. It wasn't even that big of a deal. But getting back to this, Washington Post thinks it's okay to raise taxes. And in the first year, they would raise $183 billion in taxes. That goes up 3% per year, according to the Washington Post. You do the math. This continues to grow each year over a carbon tax. And again, this is totally set up for the whole narrative. See, I told you if we tax people with the CO2, the climate change will go down and everything. We're cooling now, folks. We did it. And that's what I feel like this is. This is that background narrative for when we prove the majority of people who disbelieve in what's happening. When we prove them right, they'll have the backup story of no, it wasn't your theory. We proposed these taxes. Folks paid the taxes and they got tired of it, so they started using less gasoline, they started using less oil, and so on and so forth. And to me, that's the narrative of the left. That's the narrative. Their ego, they don't want to look at the data. They don't want to look at the science. They don't want to be told different. Their egos are too big for that. So they come up with this tax, which they've done anyway. But even the Washington Post believes that, hey, you know what? We're not done taxing you folks yet. You guys aren't paying your weight yet. And that's what that Cortez chick says. We're not paying our fair share. She wants to see taxes go up 77% in 12 years. So, more fake news on Washington Post talking about taxing. This is what their plan would be. And I'm sure that there's some, Democrats looking at this article like, hey, that's not a bad idea. 180 billion in taxes in the first year. Hey, sometimes I wonder if we just don't, if by even talking about this stuff, it makes me wonder if we're just not giving the actual ingredients on how to build how to make their cake, basically. Cake being the propaganda. President Trump trolling climate change activists again, and everybody got mad. And at first, let's read the tweet. It says here, be careful and try staying in your homes. Large parts of the country are suffering from tremendous amounts of snow and near record-setting cold. Amazing how big this system is. Wouldn't be bad to have a little of that good old-fashioned global warming right now! ! All right. So, everybody got butthurt about this. And this goes back to where someone who is guilty reacts immediately, even when there's no accusations being pointed. All President Trump was saying was, hey, sure would be nice to see some of that global warming. And he's right. It's freezing cold out there. So here's people who are all bent out of shape. Nina Paul, January 20th, 3:20 p.m. She wrote, Sunday morning began with a stern, concerned warning from President Trump to thousands of Northeasterns expected to be affected by a massive weather system. Be careful. Look, this is just her complaining, saying things like, their response to this is just because one day it's really cold doesn't mean it's going to be changing the global trend. They even use the example of one down day on the Dow Jones doesn't mean the economy is going to trash. One cold day suddenly doesn't mean the general trend in global climate change is suddenly going on the opposite direction. These are defensive remarks because I didn't hear anything like that out of Trump. All I heard was, it sure would be nice to have some of that good old-fashioned global warming. Meaning, man, it's going to be cold. Where's that global warming? Yeah, you might be a little bit rib poking here. But at the same time, when you see responses like this, one day on the Dow Jones doesn't mean the economy is going to trash, or one day of cold doesn't mean the general trend in global climate change is suddenly going to be in the opposite direction. That's a long answer. That's a long response for someone who's just wishing for warmer temperatures. Like I said, it sounds like someone who has a guilty conscience, and it's like these people know they're lying, and they have to defend themselves immediately when called out or not called out. Because like I said, Trump was just asking for some warmer weather because it was freaking cold. All right, so let's get into the meat and bones of Harper. Lots of snow totals to talk about. We'll start in Michigan. Southeast Michigan after Saturday's winter storm. Here we go. 6 inches in Livonia. Wyandotte had 6.1. Garden City had 6.6. Romulus 5.8. Of course, they're going to give us the bigger amounts in these counties. This doesn't list everywhere that got snow. Ann Arbor, 6.5 inches. Salina, 6.0 inches. 5.5 in Manchester, 5.8 in Dexter. Some areas got 2 to 4 inches. Not that big of a deal. Michiganers, whichever you like, can handle the snow up there. Usually in the Mitten State, they have plenty of snow to talk about, but here lately, not so much. It's been kind of a weird drought for them. Monroe County got 7 inches, Temperance 7 inches, Newport 7.5. So moderate snowfall in parts of Michigan. Nothing to shut down the city for a day or two by far, but definitely their first significant snow. And this is the first part of Ohio. 4.5 inches was reported in Cincinnati, northern Kentucky. 5.3 inches was recorded in Walton. This is northern Kentucky. Now that's significant for that part of the region. 5.3 inches is quite a bit of snow for these folks. Level 2 emergency declaring essential travel only in Boone County remains in effect. Now this was as of earlier. I think this article is from yesterday. Actually, it was published, yesterday. So Sunday they had that level 2 snow emergency all morning. Duke Energy reported only 104 power outages in Cincinnati, 38 in northern Kentucky. So, Ohio, Kentucky, they got the lighter end of this. But I do know that 5.3 inches in northern Kentucky is a substantial amount for those folks. But in the Northeast, quite different story. Cuyahoga County, Cleveland, Ohio, 13.4 inches of snow. Strongsville, 12 inches. Broadview Heights, 10.5. North Royalton, 10 inches of snow. Parma had 8. Monroe Center, 17.6 inches of snow. Kellogg'sville, 16 inches. Edgewood, 12.6. Ashland got 13 inches. Huron got 12 inches. Montville, 13 inches. Newberry, 12. Chardon, 12. Hamden, 11. Middlefield, 10.4. Willard and Collins both had 11 inches. Madison, 11.1 inches of snow. 13 in Oberlin, 12 in Amherst, 17 inches in Homerville, 12.5 in Medina, and 10.7 in Lodi. So northern Ohio got upwards of a foot, it looks like here on the average. So southern Ohio, not so much, but from central Ohio to northern Ohio, northeastern Ohio especially, picked up quite a bit of snowfall here. And that is a common sight for most places that felt Harper's wrath. I can tell you firsthand from locally. Here we have area snowfall totals from the National Weather Service. This is western New York. Genesee County, we have a couple areas here. Elroy, 13.5. Alden, 11.3. Batavia had 11 inches. In Livingston County, Avon had 12 inches of snow. Danesville had 11 inches of snow. Orleans County, Medina with 8.7. Let's see, Wyoming County, Warsaw got 13 inches of snow. West Wyoming got 12.8, 12.3 in southwest Attica. Taking a look in Allegheny County, Angelica, 9 inches of snow. Rushford, 8.8. Cataracas County, Little Valley, 13 inches. Randolph, 11 inches. Cataracas, 10 inches even. Dunkirk in Chautauqua County, 11 point. Chautauqua, thank you. Maria is a Western New Yorker.
Cattaraugus.
Chautauqua. Forestville, 16 inches of snow. Silver Creek, 10 inches. Fredonia, 9.5 inches of snow. Jamestown, 8.4 inches. Usually you pick up pretty decent amounts during these kinds of snow events. Erie County, West Seneca, 16 inches of snow. It looks like we would have got around 16 there. Eden, 12.6. Cheektowaga, 12 inches of snow. Buffalo Airport, 12 inches of snow. The jet exhaust probably melted about 7 inches. East Aurora, 11.5 inches. Amherst, 11.3 inches. Glenwood, 11 inches. And North West Cheektowaga, 10 inches of snow. As you can see, Western New York, 12 inches. It looks like 8 to 12 was the common number as far as how much snowfall we saw in Western to Central New York. Now, we go to upstate New York, where it says here, according to the Post-Star, the National Weather Service in Albany has posted its final snowfall amounts from the weekend snowstorm. And when it's all said and done, a number of local communities have gotten 2 feet or so before the storm had moved east. Lake Desolation of the Greenfield topped the readings with 26.3 inches of snow, and a Weather Service spotter in Hudson Falls checked in at 23.1 inches of snow. Other reports as well in the area, 16 to 17 inches of snow, but 23.1 inches of snow in Hudson Falls. While Warrensburg accumulated 22 inches, Hague had 20 inches, Queensbury got 19.2, 19 inches fell in Chestertown as well. Glens Falls got 16 inches. I beg to differ with that. And let's see, another report of 19.8 inches in Glens Falls and another part of Glens Falls. North Hudson got 21 inches. So as we move through the central part of New York and the upstate areas near the Adirondacks, Saratoga, the Lake George area, it looks like we got a lot from anywhere from 16 to 26 inches of snow. So you can kind of see how we've started here in the west, or Michigan I should say, Cincinnati, Ohio region. These were the areas that had lesser snowfall totals. The Michigan, the southern part of Ohio, northeast Ohio really got the effects. And then western New York had a decent storm. Nothing, they've seen worse. This was nothing for them. Buffalonians can handle that. But this storm here, it seemed like the more intense snow definitely fell in this region here in upstate New York and central New York, from Albany north, actually, I should say. Connecticut snow totals town by town. I'm not going to go through every single town, but they were a little bit further east. And, you're talking about 4.5 inches in New Fairfield. Newtown, 3.1. Durham, 1.3. North Haven, 3.5. So this storm was on a fine line, and if it wasn't traveling on that path, you got missed. Staffordville, 6.2. North Granby, which is 7.2 inches. Those were the highest totals in the state of Connecticut for this storm. So that much further east, you guys barely saw any results from this snowstorm here. And snow totals from Vermont. Again, we're talking about 11 inches, 18 inches in Killington. That was around 2 p.m. Turnbridge had 18 inches, Sudbury 18 inches, Ferrisburg 17, Newark 15, Bruce Hollow 15.4. So again, Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, Maine. Snow totals across Maine, 14 to 16 and counting as of 1:34 January 20th. So right there they got well over 20 inches, or so we thought. So Searsmont, according to this, is 12 inches, 14 in Rockland. I believe, here we go, with 20 inches of snow in the last 24 hours here at Sugarloaf Mountain. Shawnee Peak, Bridgeton announced a foot of snow. Sunday River announced 14 to 16 inches of snow. These are ski areas, by the way. Bethel announced 14 to 16 inches of snow. And then the lower elevation, Searsmont 12 inches, Rockland 14, Farmington 14 inches. So again, around a foot, 8 inches to a foot. And I think these numbers were from January 20th. So this was Sunday's article. So I should probably found a more updated article. Sorry about that, guys. I'm reading Sunday's news. Gotta love it. But you get the idea here. If we already had that much snow on the ground, 20 inches in certain spots on Sunday, and that snowstorm lasted a little bit longer than it did here in New York, so there was probably another 8 to 12 inches that fell on the ground. I'll get the updated totals for our next broadcast. And then before I show the GFS, the upgraded GFS, we have a possibility for snow in the deep south this weekend. This is a real concern here. We were talking about it last week. Several people I've seen on Twitter speaking about this possibility, maybe as of early as last week, snow in the deep south. It's possible. And the way this is set up, this cold air and this jet stream is set up, there is a possibility. We also have another storm system moving in, and this one's going to be a little bit different. And I say this because what I believe we have coming up here for the Northeast is what you call a January thaw. We're going to have temperatures here in the Northeast. Some spots will see the upper 30s and lower 40s for Wednesday and Thursday. Okay? But then after that, Thursday temperatures will begin to plummet once again back to the 20s and teens. So we have rain in the forecast. We have snow. Let's get into it. Taking a look at Tuesday, January 22nd, still cold air in place across the Northeast. There's that ridge of low pressure here in Kansas, and there's also warmer air below that. So it's drawing in moisture from the Gulf, already a decent amount of snow falling from the system. And the track is similar to Harper, but the rain line and the temperature line is a little bit more north at this point. And as we move into Wednesday, we start to see temperatures rise into the Midwest, Ohio Valley, as it starts as rain. As it goes into the Northeast, this could start as snow, but this storm system going north-northeast is going to draw in warmer air, which will start as rain for most of New York and the Northeast in the beginning. But as the storm moves out, there is colder air behind it, so this will end as some snow showers, some light snow showers, some mixed freezing precipitation in the southwest Ohio, or southeast Ohio, I should say, all the way through Kentucky and the Tennessee Valley as well. But here we are on the 24th. There's where they think this snow might be happening, right here in Louisiana, Mississippi. There's possibility of Alabama possibly getting some decent amount of snow, and this blue indicates some heavy snowfall. So Tennessee, southern Tennessee, parts of northern Alabama, possibility we might see a significant snowfall, and for them that would be 1 to 3 inches for this part of the country. They don't see that kind of snow on a regular basis, but this storm has that potential at this point from what I'm seeing. Then as this thing moves out, that cold air comes right back, and everything that was rain in New York and Pennsylvania and West Virginia is now changing over to snow and could turn into a quick 3 to 5 inches for places in upstate New York where we just received anywhere from 16 to 24 inches of snow. The reason why I mention this is that the temperatures are going to be hovering right above freezing at the mid-30 mark on Wednesday, and then possibly 39 degrees on Thursday, and then the temperatures start to fall. You've got rain that's going to be relevant the entire time, 24-hour period of steady rainfall that will hit the snow. Now, this will not be enough to melt the snow, obviously, but after the temperatures start to freeze again, you've got waterlogged snow with rain in it starting to freeze up, and at the end, it's a possibility of at least 1 to 3 inches, possibly 3 to 5, in areas that have already seen 16 to 20 inches. So take some snow off for the melt of this rain, but then add a little bit back on top of it when we get these freezing cold temperatures once again. And high pressure builds in over the northern plains, and that cold front dips all the way down into the deep south once again Friday, January 25th, as we will see freezing temperatures through parts of Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina. The panhandle of Florida will also get in on the fun. That's right. Western winds will shift into the Great Lakes for the western New York, and we will see lake effect snow this weekend. Nothing major, just typical January showers. Gets a little interesting next Sunday. Looks like we get a little clipper system developing. Maybe drop another 1 to 3 to 3 to 5 inches in parts of New York, and then as it goes further northeast, looks like it picks up a little steam. And then we have another system moving in from the northern plains, heading towards the northeast. Do you see the pattern here, guys? If you live in the northeast, I hope you like snow. And this system right here doesn't look pretty. This is right at the end of the month. So Monday, January 28th. This is a little bit of time out. Today is the 21st, so this is next week. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, You guys will be in the middle of this storm at the beginning of it. Take us into later Monday in Michigan, southeast Michigan. You're going to see some more snow. Radical Gardener, cover your plants. This low will continue to move southeast and then almost level out as it continues to drop further south. Now, there's another cold front behind this, too. Most of Texas, all the way down to the border of Mexico, could see freezing temperatures on Tuesday, January 29th. This cold front is massive, dropping even further deeper into the south as the 30th of January. Now, but focusing on the northeast with this storm, this is a several-day event, which will begin in the northeast right around Tuesday, January 29th, central New York, Pennsylvania, as that cold air has already been in place for several days. And this begins to look like Tuesday into Wednesday, heavier snow the following day as the system moves out. But look at that cold front, guys. Once again, the majority of the country is going to be well below average on temperatures. And as we get closer to February, the Northwest finally getting that snow. I know a lot of folks in Montana, those ski resorts are starving for more snow. Here it comes. And look at this system. February 1st. This was another storm I saw earlier today. This has changed already. And this one has me thinking that this could be another potential big storm close to the one we just had with Harper. This one is definitely worth watching. This is February 2nd. And look at the size of this system on February 3rd. From the Northeast all the way back to California. This thing is huge. February 4th into the 5th. I mean, this one's going to be worth keeping an eye on, folks. So, one thing I want to point out right now is that the old Farmer's Almanac predicted a cold and snowy northeast, a below average temperature, and a little bit more snow in the Midwest, like the Ohio Valley and Kentucky. And then you've got that battle zone in the south where they got the ice. Okay, that's all happening right now. And I read that forecast off back in August, September. Old Farmer's Almanac. So that one's always been kind of reliable when it comes to predicting winter forecast. The Farmer's Almanac, I know there's two different ones, but the old one seems to line up. And I'd like to look at it a little closer and see what factors that it does have for their prediction. So I'm finding it very, very peculiar and interested this year that the areas that we've had the cold and the snow and the ice has been the areas that were predicted back in August from some, not just the old Farmer's Almanac. There was other meteorologists as well that were lining up with this forecast too. So impressive storms on the horizon for the Northeast. And when we talked about the sudden stratospheric warming event that happened in the Arctic, and the people like Joe Bastardi predicted 4 to 6 weeks of severe weather conditions for the Northeast and the East, he's not lying. None of these guys are lying. They don't, they're not rooting for this by any means. Nobody would root for a forecast like this, but it's happening. It's storm after storm, a little bit of a break, another storm, another storm, another storm, and these systems are just massive. And if that thing shifts a little bit further south, this one here in the beginning of February, if this thing just shifts a little bit further south, we just had an update. So it looks like February 5th and 6th were quiet. But, man, not the case for California. They're going to be dealing with a massive low-pressure system. Once again, record rains are possible in Northern California. More snow coming in Iowa and Montana. So this map has become very active, in my opinion, over the last several days. And it's going to continue to stay that way. But like I was saying, people like Joe Bastardi, who was talking about how long this was going to last. And so far, he's been dead on. And things, in my book right now, seem to be intensifying as far as how much worse it's going to get for this winter. I know, it's January, it's February. I get it. It's supposed to be cold and snowing. That's what we get. But these systems are massive. And I don't remember this many people being affected. Last year, I think the Northeast was just punished. I don't remember a whole lot of snow. So far, we've seen widespread snow, and it was so weird because we were just talking about this. A dry December means a snowy January, and somebody laughed and said, "Really? Is that what they say?" And I grinned and said, "Yeah, that's what they say. That's what's happening. Boy, is that happening." And February doesn't look to let up. Now, the latest update on the GFS 18Z indicates that February 5th and 6th might be our breather. Lots of high pressure across the lower 48. I'll pause it on the 6th. So maybe this will be a day of catch your breath. Not for the folks out in the west, though. We'll have to watch that system, too, because this jet stream is like a slide up here in the northwest, and then it dips down and then goes back up. We'll have to keep an eye on that storm system. That could be another big storm heading to the northeast, another cross-country storm. And those seem to be the most common things right now. All winter so far. Everything starts in the northwest and comes down and then back up to the northeast. Let's take a look at our temperatures real quick. Go ahead and update this Monday. All right, so as we get that break on the 6th, I'm curious to see what the temperature is going to be like. That break is going to be well deserved at that point, but it's still going to be freezing temperatures. And man, does this indicate we haven't seen anything yet. So we get this little bit of a warm up here on the 23rd, 24th, and then the temperatures start to drop. Here we go again. Canada, I mean, there you guys are already. I can see 31, negative 39. And that starts pushing closer to the lower 48. Once again, northern plains, the Greater Lakes, Ohio, the Northeast, more Arctic air to set in this coming weekend. More. Mild air is trying to fight in and push in, but look at that contrast line, guys. Look at this. Right along the Dakota, I mean, we're talking this is probably 100 miles difference where you could be 36 degrees and then negative 6 degrees 100 miles to your east. Insane contrast. But some very, very cold air pushing in. Look at that, negative 48 in parts of Canada. Negative 47. By the end of January, that cold air pushes its way back into the U.S. Once again, Minnesota, Wisconsin, negative 20s for you. This is going to be the coldest air so far this season. Much of the country in the 20s on January 29th and 30th. Again, Ohio Valley, look out for negative temperatures on January 30th. Northeast, what we're experiencing right now might not be anything what we might be getting towards the end of the month and the beginning of February. And this cold air is sticking around. Moo. So we get a little bit of normalcy here on February 1st. But with this strong cold Arctic front, it definitely appears that love will prevail. And the indication here on the GFS is quite interesting. This is just updated, folks. I'm now seeing this information as you are. It's not indicated on any of the forecast models of precipitation, but interesting to see the warm-up that we could be experiencing on February 4th. And this is sudden. Very tricky weather coming up, folks. Very tricky weather. We will continue to watch this and forecast this the best that we can. And I want to look at this one more time because, yeah, so we did see a change in the forecast. Now, as I started showing you this massive system, right before it updated as we were live, folks, this has already changed. So this has bumped up a little bit further north. And that warm-up that I was just showing you guys, that's why I acted a little tongue-tied here in a second. But here on the 4th, makes sense. So new information as we are here live. We just were talking about this storm system possibly being the next big snowmaker. And yet we see temperatures rising possibly near 50 degrees on the 4th here in the northeast. Almost 60 degrees in Ohio. And then on Monday, look at this. 61 in Cincinnati, 57 near Cleveland, 51 degrees in upstate New York on February 4th. So we have to watch this one because this is possible for flooding, some bad flooding from the ice, like last year in Buffalo, after we had that really cold 3 weeks from Christmas until early mid-January, and then we got 60-degree weather that just caused all this havoc with ice jams. But look at this. Arctic freezing temperatures to return shortly after this brief warm-up. So it looks like, and it's crazy how just 5 minutes can make a difference on these forecasts. And that's why you really have to be careful when you do long-term forecasting on this GFS. I honestly don't like to go past 5 to 7 days. And so this is a safe bet right here. But the trend is suggesting that around February 1st that we will be looking at a trend where we are trying to have a February thaw as that cold Arctic air is trying to push into the U.S. Makes you wonder, if this Arctic push wasn't happening right now, what kind of warmer temperatures would we have seen in the South and possibly the Midwest and even the Northeast? Interesting. And I wonder if that warmth kills a lot of this cold Arctic air that's trying to make its way. So, something to monitor here, but it's suggesting right now from February 1st through the 3rd, we could be in for a thaw for much of the east and northeast that wouldn't necessarily melt all the snow, but it would cause some issues. Let's take a look at El Nino temperatures, the updates here. This has not been refreshed since yes it has, 21st. I didn't do this, folks. I tried to wait for you guys. Once again, looking at the North Atlantic, still drunk. And El Nino is going back to El No-No as it's dropping from its peak high, now at plus 0.741 above threshold. It's very, very weak El Nino with temperatures dropping once again. Let's check out our ice in the Arctic. Let's hit the refresh button on that. Looks like we're continuing to grow. Here we are, folks, meeting right at that 2012 line and rising. Let's compare that 2018. Look at that. Huge significant. So all you ice naysayers out there, this doesn't look like melting ice to me. We started off higher. We're continuing to grow. So this year is going to end on a positive note, especially when we get to the warmer months of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. So very promising ice growth in the Arctic, as far as promising goes, when I mean supporting the theory that we support. Taking a look at more ice data here in the Arctic. Pretty much the same as we showed from the last time. Ice almost bumps up against all the orange lines here that we see, the median ice edge. I know last year when we were showing this, a lot of the areas it struggled. It wasn't the best. We didn't see the ice fill up like this, especially as fast as it did in the Hudson Bay this year. So it was almost like a rapid freeze, even during the sudden stratospheric warming situation. And that's pretty much all I have for tonight. Mari, I don't know if you wanted to come on over here and say hello to everybody in the Chizat.
Chizat, Jake. We got our Viking friend Ian, and he is really missing you on camera with your tiny head and your big mic.
My tiny head and my big mic.
He did a super chat because we were talking about your birthday.
Uh-oh.
So, give a shout out to him. He deserves that.
Ian's always the favorite Viking.
I told him if I ever buy you a new mic, which maybe you get one for your birthday, Jake. I don't know. I'm gonna call it the Viking mic.
We will. I'll actually go out and buy like a Minnesota Vikings logo, and we'll put it on the mic.
The Viking mic.
And I'll put it on camera to show you that it's the Viking mic.
And just not too. There's so much going on in the chat. It's hard to keep up. I just want to say hi to everyone. We've been very busy developing the grandsolarminimum.com. And shoveling. It was freezing here today. We went outside and it was what? 1 degree?
-2.
Oh, -2. Yeah, actually,
when
I
shoveled.
woke up, I tweeted out this morning, -7. So, yeah, I hope the school's closed tomorrow. The wind chill is supposed to be between -15 and 35 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, not good. -30.
So definitely, people, check out grandsolarminimum.com. I am working out all the bugs and kinks. So if you log in, register, check out the GSM social. We have forums up. I'm just working on getting topics and all that started, but I definitely want you guys to test it out and give me your feedback so I can tweak it and just make it good. Everyone has different devices, browsers, and everything, so I really want to get this site tested out so it works good for everyone. That's all I got, Jake. I don't know if you want to say anything.
That's it. I really appreciate everybody's support, and we, as always, continue to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, of course, YouTube, Patreon. Although we haven't gotten a lot done on the Patreon, but that will happen as well. Further down the road into the future, we'll start getting more valuable information out to our subscribers, because that's what it really is all about, is just getting the message out, and putting the work in for it is at times laborious, but laborious, and it can be boring, but this is our passion. We love this, and I don't think there's anything else that Mari and I would rather do, is to come with this information and follow and monitor the situation that we're going through right now, which is a very slow process. It's not going to be very fast. So thankfully, we're going to be around for a long time. So guys, please like and share and subscribe, and we will talk soon. Take care, everyone.